Good morning, loves.
Life came full circle. The billionaire doctor reunites with her lost love, now a janitor. The smell hit Celeste first, that particular combination of lemon-scented floor cleaner and the faint mechanical oil that somehow survived industrial washing. It was 7:30 on a Tuesday morning, and she'd arrived at the Mel Brock Hotel corporate headquarters earlier than usual, her mind already running through the quarterly reports she needed to review before the 9 o'clock board meeting. The elevator doors opened on the executive floor, and she stepped out, her blue heels clicking against marble that reflected the early morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She wore her signature royal blue blazer over a white silk blouse, denim shorts that would make her assistant Clara raise an eyebrow, but perfectly captured her refusal to conform to corporate stuffiness, and she carried her leather portfolio under one arm. She was halfway to her corner office when she saw him. A man in a blue maintenance uniform knelt beside a utility cart, scrubbing at a stubborn scuff mark on the pristine floor. His back was to her, shoulders broad under the standard-issue work shirt, dark hair slightly too long to be regulation neat. Yellow rubber gloves covered his hands as he worked with methodical precision, the kind of attention to detail that suggested pride in work most people considered beneath notice. Celeste would have walked past without a second glance. She employed hundreds of maintenance workers across her hotel chain, except for three things that happened in quick succession. First, the man reached up to push his hair back from his forehead, and even from behind, the gesture was so achingly familiar that her breath caught. Second, she noticed the small leather keychain hanging from his belt loop, worn brown leather with a silver motorcycle charm that caught the light. Third, he turned his head slightly to check his work, and Celeste saw his profile. Her portfolio hit the floor with a slap that echoed in the quiet hallway. The man's head snapped up, and for a moment that stretched into eternity. Ryan Walker stared at Celeste Davenport across 10 feet of expensive marble and 10 years of silence. "Jesus," he breathed, and even his voice was the same, deeper now, roughened by time and experience, but unmistakably him. Celeste couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at the boy she'd loved at 15, now 29 and kneeling on her office floor with a scrub brush in his hand. He'd filled out since high school. The lanky teenager had become a man with worker's muscles and the kind of tan that came from hours outdoors, not from a spa. His face had lost its boyish softness, sharpened into planes and angles that suggested he'd learned some hard lessons. But his eyes were the same warm brown she remembered, currently wide with shock that probably matched her own. "Celeste," he said, and the way he said her name made her 25-year-old self feel 15 again, standing on the beach at sunset, promising they'd find a way to make it work. They hadn't. "Ryan," her voice came out steadier than she felt. "What are you doing here?" It was possibly the stupidest question she'd ever asked. The answer was obvious. He was cleaning her floors. The real question, the one she couldn't quite articulate, was, how did we end up here, in this impossible moment, you on your knees and me in designer heels, when once we were just two kids who thought love was enough? He seemed to understand anyway. He always had been able to read her better than anyone else. "Working," he said simply, pulling off the yellow gloves and standing up. He was taller than she remembered, or maybe she'd just forgotten how it felt to stand near him. "Started about 6 months ago. Night shift usually, but Martinez called in sick, so I took the morning coverage." 6 months. He'd been in her building for 6 months, and she'd never known. The thought made something twist in her chest. "I didn't," she started, then stopped. "Didn't what? Didn't know? Didn't expect to ever see him again? Didn't think about him every time she saw a Harley Davidson or heard certain songs or passed the beach where they used to meet?" "I know," Ryan said quietly. "Different shifts, different worlds." He glanced at her blazer, her portfolio still on the floor between them, the subtle markers of her success that screamed the distance between them louder than words ever could. "Congratulations, by the way, on all of it. The hotels, the Forbes profile last year. Your dad would have been proud." The mention of her father hit like a physical blow. Robert Davenport had died 5 years ago, leaving her the Mel Brock empire at 20 and absolutely no idea how to run it. She'd learned, though. Learned fast and learned hard, driven by equal parts grief and determination not to let his legacy crumble. Ryan would know that. Of course he would. He'd loved her father almost as much as she had, back when he used to help in the hotel garage. learning about engines from the older man who treated a lower-class kid with more respect than Robert's own social circle ever had. "He liked you," Celeste said, her throat tight. "He always said you had good hands, could fix anything." "Some things," Ryan corrected, and there was weight to those words that had nothing to do with engines. He bent to pick up her portfolio, holding it out to her. "You dropped this." Their fingers brushed as she took it, and the contact sent electricity up her arm that 10 years should have dulled but apparently hadn't. Ryan felt it too. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened in the quick withdrawal of his hand. "I should," they both said simultaneously, then stopped. "You first," Celeste said. "I should get back to work. This floor won't clean itself." He managed a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And you've got that board meeting at 9. I remember you always had a thing about being early, getting your thoughts organized." He remembered. Of course he remembered. They'd spent hours talking about everything and nothing, back when time seemed infinite, and the future was something that happened to other people. "Right," Celeste said. "The board meeting. She should walk away, should go to her office, review her reports, pretend this encounter was just an awkward coincidence that meant nothing. Should definitely not stand here cataloging the new scar above Ryan's left eyebrow, the crow's feet at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled more than she did these days. The way his work uniform somehow made him look more dignified than half the executives she knew in $1,000 suits. "Celeste," Ryan said, his voice dropping lower, "I need to ask you something." "Okay. Did you ever—" He stopped, shook his head. "Never mind. It doesn't matter. Did I ever what?" He looked at her for a long moment, and in his eyes she saw everything they'd been, everything they'd lost, everything that still hung unresolved between them. "Did you ever think about that last summer?" he finally said, "before everything went to hell?" Celeste's breath caught. That summer. The summer she was 15 and he was 19, working at her father's hotel and teaching her to appreciate things beyond her privileged bubble. The summer they'd fallen in love with the reckless certainty of youth. The summer that ended when her mother found out and made it crystal clear that Robert Davenport's daughter did not date the help. "Every day," she whispered, before she could stop herself. Something flared in Ryan's eyes. Surprise, pain, hope. She couldn't tell. "Then why didn't you—" "Mr. Walker?" A sharp voice cut through the moment. They both turned to see Margaret Chen, the building operations manager, striding down the hallway with a clipboard and an expression of severe disapproval. "This floor should have been completed 20 minutes ago. Ms. Davenport doesn't pay you to socialize." The irony wasn't lost on Celeste that technically, yes, she did pay him. She paid everyone in this building. The thought made her slightly nauseous. "My fault, Margaret," Celeste said smoothly, slipping into her CEO voice like armor. "I dropped my portfolio and Mr. Walker was kind enough to retrieve it. He was just explaining the new eco-friendly cleaning products you've implemented. Very impressive initiative." Margaret's expression shifted from disapproval to pleased surprise. "Oh, well, yes, we've been working on reducing our environmental impact. Mr. Walker actually suggested several of the product changes. He's quite knowledgeable about chemical compositions." Of course he was. Ryan had always been brilliant in ways that had nothing to do with formal education. His mind worked differently, connecting dots others missed, understanding systems with an intuition that couldn't be taught. "I'd like to hear more about that," Celeste said, making a snap decision she'd probably regret. "Mr. Walker, could you stop by my office after you finish here? Say, 8:15? Ryan's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Yes, ma'am." "Ma'am." The word stung. The formality a barrier he'd erected that she'd somehow have to break through. "Excellent." Celeste nodded to Margaret. "I'll let you both get back to work." She walked to her office with her spine straight and her heels clicking with confidence. And she didn't look back even though every cell in her body wanted to. It wasn't until she closed her office door behind her that she let herself lean against it. Eyes closed, heart pounding. Ryan Walker, here, in her building, on his knees scrubbing floors while she prepared for board meetings about quarterly profits and expansion strategies. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Celeste moved to her desk, a sleek glass and chrome affair that cost more than most people made in 6 months, and sank into her leather chair. Her office was all clean lines and muted elegance, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. She'd designed it herself, creating a space that projected power and control. Right now, she felt neither powerful nor in control. She opened her portfolio, trying to focus on the reports inside, but her mind kept circling back to Ryan's face, to the way he'd said her name, to the 10 years of questions that had just landed on her doorstep demanding answers. Her phone buzzed. A text from Clara, her assistant. "Morning. Seeing you're in early. Coffee? And the Peterson contract needs your signature ASAP." Celeste typed back. "Coffee, yes. Extra shot. And I need you to pull an employee file for me. Ryan Walker, Maintenance Division." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Clara was too professional to ask questions, but Celeste could imagine her curiosity. In 5 years of working together, Celeste had never requested a maintenance worker's file. "On it," came the response. Celeste set her phone down and swiveled her chair to face the windows. The city spread out before her, a testament to what ambition and ruthless focus could build. She'd taken her father's modest hotel chain and turned it into an empire. 15 properties across 8 states, with 3 more in development. Revenue had tripled in 5 years. She'd been profiled in Forbes, invited to speak at industry conferences, courted by investors and competitors alike. She'd built all of this by keeping her emotions locked down, by making hard decisions without sentimentality, by refusing to let anything distract her from the goal. And now Ryan Walker was back in her life, and every carefully constructed wall she'd built felt like it was made of sand. A knock on her door made her turn. Clara entered with a large coffee and a tablet. She was 32, efficient to the point of being intimidating, and had been Celeste's right hand since the beginning. "Your coffee," Clara said, setting it on the desk. "And the file you requested. Ryan Walker, age 29, hired 6 months ago. Exemplary performance reviews, never late, never absent except for pre-approved time off. Suggestions for process improvements that have saved the company about $15,000 in annual maintenance costs. Currently works night shift but occasionally covers day shift as needed." Celeste scanned the tablet, absorbing information while her coffee cooled. Personal information: single father, 1 daughter age 7, lives in the Riverside district, takes the bus to work. Previous employment includes 3 years at Morrison Auto Shop, 2 years at Henderson Manufacturing. References describe him as incredibly reliable and unusually intelligent for his position. Clara paused. That last quote is from his supervisor at Morrison. Bit condescending, but the sentiment seems genuine. Single father. The words landed heavy. Ryan had a daughter. Of course he did. He'd always talked about wanting kids, about the kind of father he wanted to be, learning from his own dad's mistakes. "Thank you, Clara," Celeste said, not looking up from the screen. "I've asked Mr. Walker to stop by at 8:15 to discuss maintenance protocols. When he arrives, please show him in immediately." "Maintenance protocols," Clara repeated, her tone carefully neutral in a way that suggested she didn't believe that for a second. "Yes. The same maintenance protocols we spent 3 hours reviewing with Margaret last month? These are new concerns." Celeste finally looked up, meeting Clara's knowing gaze. "Different protocols." Clara smiled slightly. "Of course. I'll make sure you're not disturbed." After Clara left, Celeste sat in her expensive chair in her expensive office, staring at Ryan Walker's employee photo on the tablet. It was a standard ID badge shot, him in his blue uniform looking directly at the camera with a slight smile that didn't quite mask the wariness in his eyes. She touched the screen, tracing the line of his jaw, and felt 25 years of practiced self-control start to crack. At 8:15 exactly, Clara's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Davenport, Mr. Walker is here. Send him in." Celeste stood, smoothing her blazer, as if being on her feet would somehow give her back the sense of equilibrium Ryan's presence had shattered. The door opened, and he walked in, and she had to actively remind herself to breathe. He'd changed out of the maintenance uniform into jeans and a dark blue button-down shirt that brought out his eyes. His hair was still damp, suggesting he'd showered in the employee facilities. He looked clean, casual, and completely out of place in her minimalist office. He also looked uncomfortable as hell. "You wanted to see me," Ryan said, staying near the door as if prepared to bolt. "Come in, please." Celeste gestured to the leather chairs facing her desk. "Sit." He moved with the same economy of motion she remembered, crossing the room and settling into the chair with a natural grace that made her designer furniture look pretentious. He didn't fidget, didn't fill the silence with nervous chatter, just waited. The silence stretched between them, full of 10 years of unsaid things. "I lied to Margaret," Celeste finally said. "I don't actually care about cleaning products." "I figured." Ryan's lips quirked in something that might have been amusement. "You never did have much patience for bullshit." "No," She moved around her desk, perching on the edge rather than sitting behind it. The desk felt like too much of a barrier, too much of a symbol of the distance between them. I wanted to talk to you. Away from the hallway, away from... She gestured vaguely. All of that. Okay, so talk. Celeste studied him, looking for the boy she'd known in the man before her. He was there, in the set of his shoulders, in the direct way he met her gaze. But there was something else too, something harder, more guarded. Life had marked him, the same way it had marked her. You have a daughter, she said. Hannah, she's 7. Smart as hell. Asks about 1,000,000 questions a day. Obsessed with butterflies. The wariness in his expression softened when he talked about his daughter. Love transforming his features in a way that made Celeste's chest ache. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Her mother? Not in the picture. Left when Hannah was 6 months old, decided motherhood wasn't for her. Ryan's voice was matter of fact, but Celeste heard the old pain underneath. It's been just us for a while now. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're good. She's happy, healthy, loves her school. I might not give her everything money can buy, but she knows she's loved. There was a challenge in his tone, a defensive edge that made it clear he expected judgment. I don't doubt that, Celeste said softly. You always knew what mattered. Ryan's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features. Did I? Yes. She stood, moving to the windows, needing to look at something other than his face. You taught me that, actually. That summer. That summer ended badly. Because of my mother. The words tasted bitter. Eleanor Davenport, society queen, had taken one look at her 15-year-old daughter's infatuation with a 19-year-old maintenance worker and shut it down with ruthless efficiency. Threats, ultimatums, promises that Ryan would lose his job and never work in the industry again if he didn't stay away from Celeste. She made it impossible. She made her position clear, Ryan said carefully. Can't blame her for wanting better for you. Celeste spun around, anger flaring hot and sudden. Better? You think what she wanted was better? A kid from the wrong side of town with a GED and grease under his fingernails? Ryan stood too, his own anger rising to meet hers. Yeah, Celeste. I think most mothers would have done the same thing. She was wrong. Was she? He moved closer and the air between them felt electric. Look at you. Look at what you've built. You think you would have done all this if you'd been tied down to some mechanic at 19? Don't, Celeste said, her voice sharp. Don't pretend you know what I wanted. Don't act like her choice was right just because I happened to succeed anyway. I'm not pretending anything, I'm stating facts. You're brilliant, Celeste. You always were. You deserved the chance to become this. He gestured at the office, at her. Not to get stuck in some small-town life because you fell for the wrong guy at 15. You weren't the wrong guy. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Ryan's jaw worked. Your mother thought otherwise. So did pretty much everyone else, and looking at this, he gestured around the office again. Maybe they were right. They weren't. Celeste closed the distance between them, driven by a decade of regret. They weren't right, Ryan. I lost something when I lost you and all of this. Now it was her turn to gesture at the trappings of success. It doesn't fill that hole. Celeste, I thought about you, she interrupted, needing him to hear this. Every day. Every time I made a decision, closed a deal, opened a new property. I wondered if you'd be proud, if you'd think I was selling out, if you even thought about me at all. Jesus. Ryan's hand came up, rubbing his face. Of course I thought about you. You think I could forget you? You were... He stopped, shook his head. You were everything to me that summer. Everything. And then you were gone, and I had to figure out how to be okay with that. Did you? The question came out smaller than she intended. Figure out how to be okay with it? He looked at her for a long moment, something raw and painful in his eyes. No, he finally said. No, I didn't. I just got better at pretending. The confession broke something in Celeste, or maybe fixed something that had been broken for 10 years. She wasn't sure which. I'm not asking you to... She struggled for words, for some way to articulate what she wanted when she barely understood it herself. I don't know what I'm asking. I just know that seeing you again, I can't just pretend you're another employee. Can't just walk past you in the hallway like we're strangers. We kind of are strangers now, Ryan pointed out, but his voice was gentler. 10 years is a long time. We're different people. Are we? Celeste challenged. I still drink my coffee black with extra sugar. I still hate mornings but love sunrises. I still think about that summer and wish I'd fought harder. I still ride motorcycles, Ryan said quietly. Still believe in fixing things instead of replacing them. Still remember what you looked like with salt in your hair and sand on your feet, laughing like you didn't have a care in the world. The image he painted made Celeste's eyes burn. That girl felt like a stranger now, someone she used to be before responsibility and grief and ruthless ambition shaped her into someone harder. "I miss her," she whispered. "That girl, she's still in there." Ryan's hand lifted, hovering near her face like he wanted to touch her but didn't quite dare. "I can see her. In the way you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking. In that little crease between your eyebrows when you're frustrated." His hand finally made contact, fingertips brushing her cheek so lightly she might have imagined it. The touch sent heat cascading through her, waking up parts of herself she'd thought long dormant. "Ryan," she breathed. "This is a bad idea," he said, even as his thumb traced her cheekbone. "I'm your employee. You're my boss. There are about 1,000 ways this could go wrong. I know. I have a daughter. Responsibilities. Can't afford to lose this job over." He stopped, seeming to struggle with what to call this thing sparking between them. "Over us," Celeste finished. "There is no us. There's you, CEO of a hotel empire. And there's me, a guy who cleans floors and fixes things. Those worlds don't mix. They did once. We were kids. This is different." "Is it?" Celeste leaned into his touch, shameless in her need for connection. "Because standing here right now it feels exactly the same. Terrifying and inevitable and absolutely right." Ryan's eyes darkened. "Celeste, don't what? Don't tell the truth? Don't acknowledge that whatever we had then, it's still here? Don't—" He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was fierce and desperate. 10 years of longing compressed into one moment of connection. His hands came up to frame her face, and she gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, and for endless seconds, nothing existed except the taste of him, the feel of him, the rightness of being exactly here. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryan pressed his forehead to hers. "Fuck," he whispered. "We can't do this. I know. I mean it, Celeste. It's not smart, for either of us. I know," she repeated, even though she made no move to step away. "Your board of directors would lose their minds. The gossip, the optics, I don't care about any of that. You should." Ryan pulled back, putting necessary distance between them. "You've worked too hard to risk it on whatever this is. What if I want to risk it?" The words came out before Celeste could think them through, raw and honest. "What if I'm tired of playing it safe? What if I'm tired of building an empire that means nothing if I'm alone in it?" "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearer than I have in years." She moved toward him, determined. "I let you go once, because other people told me it was the right thing to do. I'm not making that mistake again. Celeste, have coffee with me." Ryan blinked. "What?" "Coffee tomorrow morning before your shift. There's a place on Riverside, probably near where you live. Bruno's, 6 a.m. She pulled her phone from her blazer pocket, pulling up her calendar. "I'll move my morning meeting." "You want to have coffee?" "I want to talk to you. Really talk. Not in my office where you're my employee and I'm your boss. Just two people who used to know each other catching up." "That's all this is?" Ryan asked, skepticism clear. "Catching up?" Celeste met his gaze steadily. "That's what we'll tell ourselves it is." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, the first genuine one she'd seen from him. "You always were stubborn." "I prefer determined." "Stubborn," he repeated, but there was affection in his voice that made her hope. "So is that a yes?" Ryan studied her for a long moment, and she could see him weighing options, considering consequences. Finally, he sighed. "One coffee, that's it. And then we figure out how to work in the same building without this," he gestured between them, "becoming a problem." "One coffee," Celeste agreed, even though she was already planning how to turn one coffee into 2, into 3, into whatever it took to bridge the 10 years and the class divide and everything else standing between them. "I should get back to work," Ryan said, moving toward the door. "Martinez will be back tomorrow, so this is probably the last time you'll see me on day shift." The thought of Ryan disappearing back into the night shift, into a completely different schedule where they'd never cross paths, made panic flutter in Celeste's chest. "Wait." He turned. "Your keychain," she said. "The one on your belt loop this morning. The motorcycle charm." Ryan's hand went automatically to his side, though the keychain wasn't there now. "What about it? Where did you get it?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition that she'd noticed details she had no business noticing. "It was a gift. A long time ago. From? Someone important." He held her gaze. Someone I never forgot. The confession hung between them, heavy with meaning. I kept something too, Celeste heard herself say, from that summer. What? She moved to her desk, opened the bottom drawer, pulled out a small box she kept hidden under quarterly reports and legal documents. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a simple braided bracelet made from frayed rope, the kind of thing that cost nothing and meant everything. Ryan's breath caught. You kept it. You told me it was my safety line, that as long as I wore it, I'd always find my way home. She turned it over in her hands, remembering the day he'd tied it around her wrist, 16 years old, and so sure that home meant wherever they were together. I wore it until it fell apart. Then I kept the pieces. Celeste. He moved back toward her, drawn by the memory. I can't believe you. Why would you keep that? Because I'm a sentimental idiot who never learned how to let go of the things that matter. She set the box back in the drawer, closing it firmly. 6 a.m. tomorrow, Bruno's on Riverside. Don't make me drink coffee alone. Ryan looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the reasons this was a bad idea. Instead, he just nodded. 6 a.m. He left without another word, and Celeste stood in her office, heart pounding, already counting the hours until morning. She had absolutely no idea what she was doing. No idea how to bridge the gap between CEO and janitor, between the woman she'd become and the girl who'd fallen in love on a beach at sunset. No idea if Ryan even wanted that bridge built, or if too much time and too much hurt stood between them. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't walking away again, not without a fight. The rest of Celeste's day passed in a blur of meetings and decisions that required only half her attention. The board meeting at 9 covered expansion projections for their newest property in Denver. Numbers were solid, timeline was aggressive, everyone was pleased. She signed off on the Peterson contract, approved 3 new hires for the Miami location, and had a conference call with their marketing director about the holiday campaign. Through it all, her mind kept circling back to Ryan, the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd kissed her, the careful walls he'd built that she was determined to dismantle. At 3 o'clock, Clara appeared in her doorway with an expression that suggested concern. You've been staring at that same spreadsheet for 20 minutes without actually looking at it, Clara observed. Want to tell me what's really going on? Celeste closed her laptop. Have you ever made a decision that felt completely right and completely terrifying at the same time? I moved across the country for a relationship that ended 3 months later. So yes, I'm familiar with the concept. Clara moved fully into the office, closing the door behind her. This is about Ryan Walker, isn't it? Is it that obvious? You've never requested an employee file before. You've never asked someone from maintenance to your office for a meeting. And you've been distracted all day, which isn't like you. Clara sat in the chair Ryan had occupied that morning. So either you're about to fire him, which seems unlikely given that you keep touching that bracelet in your drawer, or this is personal. Celeste hadn't realized she'd been doing that, reaching for the bracelet like a talisman. We knew each other. A long time ago. How long ago? 10 years. Before my father died, before I took over the company. We were, she struggled for the right word, close. How close? First love close. Romeo and Juliet close. My mother threatened to destroy his life if he didn't stay away from me close. Clara's eyebrows rose. Okay, that's close. And now he's here and I can't. Celeste stood, pacing to the windows. I can't just pretend he doesn't exist. Can't just see him in the hallways and not feel everything I felt back then. Do you want to? Want to what? Pretend he doesn't exist. Move on. Keep things professional. Celeste turned to face her assistant, her friend. No, she admitted. I want to be selfish and reckless and see if there's anything left of what we had, even though it's probably a terrible idea. Probably, Clara agreed. The power dynamic alone is problematic. Add in company policy about fraternization, the potential for gossip, the fact that you're in wildly different places in life. Yeah, it's a minefield. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm not done, Clara smiled. But I've also never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at your computer screen this morning when you thought I wasn't watching. Like you'd just found something you'd lost. And life's short, Celeste. Your dad taught you that. The mention of her father made Celeste's throat tight. Robert Davenport had died suddenly. A massive heart attack at 62. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. One day he was healthy and vibrant. The next he was gone, leaving Celeste to navigate grief and inheritance and instant adulthood. Dad liked Ryan, she said quietly. Said he had potential. Said he reminded him of himself when he was young, hungry to prove himself, willing to work harder than anyone else. Then maybe your dad would want you to take the chance. Or maybe he'd want me to focus on protecting what he built. Maybe, Clara said. Or maybe he'd want you to be happy. Those aren't mutually exclusive, you know. After Clara left, Celeste tried to focus on work but gave up around 5. She gathered her things, nodded to the few employees still in the office, and took the elevator down to the parking garage. Her car, a sleek silver BMW that screamed success, sat in her reserved spot near the elevator. She'd bought it 2 years ago, treating herself after closing the biggest deal in company history. It was beautiful, fast, and absolutely soulless compared to the motorcycles she used to love riding on. The memory surfaced unbidden, Ryan teaching her to ride his old bike, hands covering hers on the handlebars, his chest warm against her back as they cruised empty roads at sunset. The freedom of it, the trust required, the intimacy of moving as one unit. She wondered if he still had that bike. Probably not. Life and responsibilities had a way of forcing people to give up the things that made them feel alive. Celeste drove home on autopilot, her mind already on tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. at Bruno's. What would they even talk about? How did you summarize 10 years in a coffee shop conversation? How did you explain that success felt hollow when you'd traded everything else for it? Her house, technically her father's house, though he'd been gone long enough that she should probably stop thinking of it that way, sat in an exclusive neighborhood where lawns were manicured and neighbors minded their own business. It was too big for one person with 5 bedrooms and formal spaces she never used. But it was home, or the closest thing she had to one. She parked in the garage, went inside, and wandered through rooms that echoed with emptiness. The kitchen was pristine because she barely cooked. The living room was elegant because a designer had decorated it. The master bedroom was comfortable because she'd spared no expense on the mattress. Nothing felt lived in. Nothing felt like hers. Celeste poured herself a glass of wine, expensive Bordeaux she didn't really taste, and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking her backyard. The pool glittered in the evening light, infinity edge stretching toward the city skyline. Beautiful, cold, perfect. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It's Ryan. Clara gave me your personal number, hope that's okay. Just wanted to confirm, 6 a.m. tomorrow. Bruno's on Riverside. I'll be there. Celeste stared at the message, her heart doing something ridiculous. He'd texted her. He was confirming he was going to show up. She typed back, it's okay. See you tomorrow. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, try to get some sleep. You always got anxious before important conversations. The fact that he remembered made her smile. She responded, says the guy who used to pace for an hour before asking my dad for extra shifts. Fair point. Okay, we'll both try to sleep. Deal. Good night, Ryan. Good night, Celeste. She held her phone, rereading the exchange like a teenager with her first crush. This was ridiculous. She was a 25-year-old CEO with a master's degree and a multi-million-dollar empire. She should not be giddy over text messages. And yet here she was. Celeste tried to follow Ryan's advice about sleeping but gave up around midnight. Instead, she found herself in her father's study, the one room she'd left mostly unchanged after his death. His books still lined the shelves. His old desk still held the fountain pen he'd preferred. His reading chair still sat by the window where he used to watch the sunset. She sank into that chair now, pulling her knees up like she used to do when she was young, seeking his advice on everything from homework to heartbreak. I don't know what I'm doing, Dad, she said to the empty room. I'm about to risk everything for a guy who might not even want what I want. You'd probably tell me to be smart, to think it through, to consider the consequences. The room offered no response, but she could imagine what he'd say anyway. Robert Davenport had been pragmatic to his core, a businessman through and through. But he'd also been human, had loved her mother with a passion that survived society's judgment and his family's disapproval. You picked Mom even though everyone said she was wrong for you, Celeste continued. Married her even though your parents cut you off. Built this whole empire because you wanted to prove you could give her the life she deserved. She smiled, remembering her mother's version of the story, how Robert had promised her the moon and delivered it. So maybe you'd understand why I can't just let Ryan walk away again. She stayed in that chair until exhaustion finally pulled her under, and when she woke up stiff and uncomfortable at 4:30 a.m., she had just enough time to shower, change, and drive to Riverside. Bruno's Coffee was exactly the kind of place Celeste would never normally go. Small, independently owned, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local art. But when she pushed through the door at 5:55, the smell of fresh coffee and baking bread made something in her chest loosen. Ryan was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee steaming in front of him. He stood when he saw her, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. He'd dressed carefully, she could tell. Dark jeans, a green flannel shirt that brought out the warmth in his brown eyes, boots that had seen better days but were clean. His hair was still damp from a shower and he'd shaved, though he'd missed a small spot near his jaw that made him look endearingly human. "Hi," Celeste said, suddenly nervous in a way she hadn't been since she was 15. "Hi yourself." Ryan gestured to the chair across from him. "I got you coffee, black, extra sugar, right?" You remembered. "I remember everything." The words were simple but carried weight. Celeste sat, wrapping her hands around the cup he'd gotten her. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for not letting me chicken out at midnight when I almost texted you an excuse. You were going to cancel?" The thought hurt more than it should have. "I considered it. Seemed safer." Ryan took a drink of his own coffee. "Then I realized I'd been playing it safe for 10 years, and where had that gotten me? Where has it gotten you? Stable, employed, alone except for my daughter." He met her eyes. "Functional, but not happy, which isn't the same thing as satisfied." Celeste nodded slowly. "I understand that. I've built everything I set out to build, hit every goal I aimed for, and most days I wake up wondering why it all feels so empty. Because success without someone to share it with is just—" Ryan paused, searching for words. "It's just achievement, not joy." Yes. The simple acknowledgement felt like relief. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee, adjusting to this new dynamic where they were just Celeste and Ryan again, not CEO and janitor, not separated by class and consequence. "Tell me about Hannah," Celeste finally said. "Your daughter. What's she like?" Ryan's whole face transformed when he smiled. "She's incredible. Smart, curious, stubborn as hell. Gets that from me. Asks about 1,000,000 questions a day, and they're good questions, you know? Not kid stuff. Real philosophical stuff. Last week she wanted to know why people are mean to each other if everyone wants to be happy. What did you tell her? That people are complicated. That sometimes hurt people. That the best thing we can do is try to be kind even when it's hard." He pulled out his phone, showing her his lock screen, a photo of a little blonde girl with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile, holding up a butterfly. "She's obsessed with butterflies right now. Knows all the scientific names, can identify dozens of species. Wants to be a lepidopterist when she grows up." That's, wow. 7 years old and she knows what a lepidopterist is? "I told you she's smart." Pride radiated from him. "She's the reason I keep going, you know? Every time I think about taking the easy way out, giving up, I remember I'm raising a person, and she deserves someone who shows her that dignity and hard work matter, even when the world tells you they don't." Celeste's throat tightened. "You're a good father." "I try." Ryan set his phone down. "Her mom leaving, that messed me up for a while. Made me question everything. But Hannah needed me to be steady, so I figured it out. Got the job at your building, decent pay and benefits, regular hours so I can be there for her in the mornings and evenings. Night shift works because she's asleep anyway. Do you have help? Family? My sister watches her when I'm working. Lives a few blocks over. Has 3 kids of her own. Says one more doesn't make much difference." He smiled. "Hannah adores her cousins, and my dad's around when he's sober, which is more often these days." There was history in those words. Ryan's father had struggled with alcoholism when they were teenagers, which was part of why Ryan had been so desperate for work, so determined to build something better. Celeste was glad to hear things had improved. "What about you?" Ryan asked. "Anyone in your life? And the tabloids say you're single, but they're not always right." "They're right, I'm single." Celeste traced the rim of her cup. "I tried dating. A few guys Clara set me up with. A CEO I met at a conference. But it never—" She searched for how to explain. "It never felt real. They wanted the idea of me, the success and the connections. Or they were intimidated, which made everything weird. And I kept comparing them to—" "To?" "To you," she admitted. "To how easy it used to be with you. How you saw me. Not my last name or my bank account. I see more than that now," Ryan said quietly. "I see what you've accomplished. The hotels, the expansion, the way you've honored your dad's legacy while making it your own. That's not nothing, Celeste. It's not enough," she heard herself say. Not anymore. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and honest. "So what do you want?" Ryan's question was gentle but direct. What are you looking for with this? He gestured between them. With us having coffee? Celeste took a breath, choosing honesty over safety. I want to know if what we had was real or just nostalgia. I want to see if the connection I felt yesterday was genuine or just shock at seeing you again. She met his eyes. I want a chance to see if we could be something despite everything that makes it complicated. It's very complicated, Ryan pointed out. I know. I work for you. That's a power dynamic nightmare. I know. We're in completely different social circles. Your board would lose their minds. The media would have a field day. I don't care about any of that. You should. Ryan leaned forward, his expression serious. Celeste, you've worked too hard to risk it on someone like me. Someone who can't give you the kind of life you're used to. I don't want the life I'm used to, Celeste said fiercely. God, I don't even know how to articulate it. I want to feel something again. Want to come home to someone who cares about my day, not my quarterly profits. Want to remember what it's like to be valued for who I am, not what I've achieved. And you think I can give you that? I think you already did. 10 years ago, for one perfect summer, you made me feel seen. Made me feel valuable for reasons that had nothing to do with my name or my inheritance. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. And yesterday, when you looked at me, it was the same. Like you saw Celeste, not Ms. Davenport. And I've been chasing that feeling for a decade. Ryan's hand turned, fingers interlacing with hers. I did see you. Still do. But seeing you and being right for you are different things. Let me decide what's right for me. What about Hannah? I have to think about how this affects her. If we tried and it didn't work out, if she got attached to you and then we'd handle it like adults, Celeste interrupted. Ryan, I'm not asking you to introduce me to your daughter tomorrow. I'm asking for a chance. Coffee. Conversations. Getting to know each other again. Seeing if this thing between us is as real as it feels. He studied her for a long moment and she could see him weighing risks, considering consequences, fighting between what he wanted and what he thought was smart. One condition, he finally said. Okay, we take it slow, really slow. No jumping into anything, no grand gestures, no letting emotion override common sense. We see each other, we talk, we figure out if this is actually viable or just nostalgia, Celeste finished. I can do slow. Can you? Ryan's lips quirked. Because the Celeste I remember wasn't exactly known for patience. I've learned a few things in 10 years, including that some things are worth waiting for. All right then. He squeezed her hand. We'll try. Carefully. But Celeste, I mean it, my daughter comes first. Always. If at any point this seems like it might hurt her, I'm out. I wouldn't expect anything less. She smiled. That's part of what I always loved about you. You know what matters. Loved? Ryan caught the past tense. Or love. Celeste's breath caught. The question was a trap and an opportunity. A chance to retreat or to be brave. Love, she corrected softly. Present tense. Because I never actually stopped no matter how hard I tried. The admission settled between them, huge and terrifying, and absolutely honest. Ryan brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent heat straight to her core. This is such a bad idea, he murmured against her skin. The worst, Celeste agreed. We're going to regret it. Probably. But I can't walk away from you again. His eyes met hers, brown and warm and full of something that looked like hope. Already tried that once, didn't take. Celeste's smile felt like the first genuine thing she'd worn in years. So we're doing this? Taking a chance on disaster? Looks like it. Ryan lowered her hand but didn't let go. Though I reserve the right to panic and try to back out at least twice. I'll allow it. As long as you don't actually back out. Deal. They sat there in Bruno's coffee, hands linked across the table, and for the first time in 10 years, Celeste felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The road ahead was uncertain, full of obstacles and complications. But sitting across from Ryan, seeing the same mixture of fear and hope in his eyes that she felt in her chest, she thought maybe, just maybe, it would be worth it. So, Ryan said after a moment, what now? Now we finish our coffee. Then you go be a great dad to Hannah, and I go pretend to pay attention in meetings. And tomorrow? Same time, same place, Celeste suggested. I want to hear more about Butterfly Girl and the million questions she asks. Only if you tell me what it's actually like running a hotel empire. The real stuff, not the Forbes profile version. Deal. They talked until Ryan had to leave for his shift. Easy conversation that covered everything and nothing. When they finally stood to go, Celeste found herself not wanting the morning to end. At the door, Ryan hesitated. Then he leaned in, pressing a kiss to her cheek that lingered just long enough to make her pulse race. "See you tomorrow, Celeste." "Tomorrow," she agreed. She drove to her office in a daze, went through her day in a fog of distraction, and counted the hours until morning. Whatever happened next, whatever complications and consequences lay ahead, she'd made her choice. She was choosing Ryan, choosing the possibility of something real over the certainty of loneliness, choosing to risk everything she'd built for a chance at what actually mattered. And if that made her reckless or foolish or dangerously sentimental, well, maybe it was about time. Her phone buzzed as she sat in her office pretending to review contracts. A text from Ryan. "Hannah just asked why I'm smiling so much. Told her I had a nice coffee this morning. She wants to know if nice coffee is a secret code for something." Celeste laughed out loud, typing back, "Smart kid. Tell her nice coffee is code for finding something you thought you'd lost. She says that's the best kind of coffee. Also that butterflies go through metamorphosis and maybe people do too. I like the way she thinks. Me too. See you tomorrow, Celeste. Thanks for today. Thank you for showing up." She set her phone down, feeling lighter than she had in years. The future was uncertain, the path ahead unclear. But for the first time since her father died, since she'd taken on this empire and all its responsibilities, Celeste felt like she was moving towards something instead of just running from the past. And that, she thought, was worth every risk. 3 weeks of morning coffee at Bruno's changed everything. Celeste learned Ryan still read philosophy during breaks, still took his coffee with too much cream. They shared stories, her crushing board meetings, his late-night conversations with Hannah about why stars exist. Text messages evolved from professional to personal, photos of Hannah's butterfly discoveries. 3 weeks of falling in love all over again, deeper this time, with full knowledge of what it cost. And then Hannah asked to meet her. "She knows something's going on," Ryan said over Saturday coffee. "She's too smart. Asked me point blank yesterday if I have a girlfriend." Celeste's heart jumped. "What did you tell her?" "That I have someone special I've been spending time with, that I wanted to be sure before introducing them." Ryan met her eyes. "She wants to meet you, if you're ready." "I'm ready. I want to know this person who means everything to you." So the next Saturday, Celeste met Hannah at the park. The little blonde girl bounced with energy, wearing a yellow dress and white shoes. "Hi. Dad says you run hotels. Do you have a pool? What's your favorite butterfly?" "Mine's the monarch because they migrate 3,000 miles. Hannah's gap-toothed smile was infectious. The afternoon passed in butterfly facts, playground equipment, and ice cream. Hannah asked endless questions, brilliant and funny and so much like Ryan. At one point, while Hannah chased butterflies through the garden, Ryan moved closer on the bench. "She likes you," he said quietly. "She asked if you're going to be around for a while." "What did you say?" "That I hope so." Ryan paused. "This is real, isn't it?" Celeste turned to face him. "Yes, it's real." "Then I need to tell you something." Ryan pulled the leather keychain from his pocket, the motorcycle charm glinting. "Your dad gave this to me the week before he died. He called me to the hotel. I thought I was getting fired, but he handed me this." Celeste's breath caught. "What did he say?" "He said, 'She never got over you, you know, my stubborn girl. Take care of this. One day you might need to give it back to her.'" Ryan's voice roughened. "He knew about us. Watched you build this empire brilliantly but alone. Said that wasn't what he wanted for you." Tears burned Celeste's eyes. "Why didn't you come find me then? You'd just lost him. You were drowning in grief. I couldn't add to that burden." Ryan cupped her face gently. "But he gave me this key. Like permission, I've been carrying it for 5 years. For 5. The right moment is now." Celeste whispered, emotion thick in her throat. "It's been now since the second I saw you in that hallway." Ryan kissed her then, soft and sure, and Hannah's voice called out from the butterfly garden, "Ew, Dad." Kissing. They broke apart laughing. Hannah ran over, giggling. "Are you Dad's girlfriend now?" Celeste looked at Ryan, then at this beautiful child who was part of him. "If that's okay with you." "It's okay," Hannah said seriously, her 7-year-old wisdom shining through. "You make him smile like he used to in old pictures, before he was always tired." The simple observation hit Celeste hard. She'd been so focused on her own loneliness that she hadn't fully understood Ryan's, the weight of single parenthood, of working nights, of sacrificing his own happiness for stability. "Hey," Celeste said, dropping to Hannah's level. What if I told you I have a pool at my house and you and your dad could come swimming sometime? Hannah's eyes went wide. Really? A real pool? A real pool. And maybe after we could look for butterflies in my garden. It's kind of overgrown, but I bet there are interesting species there. Can we, Dad? Please? Ryan's expression was soft with something that looked like hope. If Celeste is sure. I'm sure, Celeste said firmly, standing. Tomorrow? Say 2 o'clock? That was how it started. Weekends that felt like family. Hannah and Ryan at her house, swimming in the infinity pool. Celeste teaching Hannah to identify flowers while Ryan fixed things. A loose deck board, a stuck window. The three of them eating dinners on the patio as the sun set, falling into a rhythm that felt natural. But reality had a way of intruding. The board meeting happened on a Tuesday morning. Margaret Chen had pieced together that her CEO was dating a maintenance worker and gone straight to the board with concerns about propriety and company image. Celeste walked into the conference room to find 8 disapproving faces and a stack of tabloid photos someone had compiled. Her and Ryan at coffee shops, leaving her house together, him helping her into her car. Ms. Davenport, board chair Richard Morrison said coldly, "We need to discuss your relationship with an employee." "My personal life is not board business," Celeste replied calmly, taking her seat. "It is when it affects company reputation and creates liability." Richard slid a folder across the table. "We've drafted a proposal. Either Mr. Walker resigns from his position, or we'll need to reconsider your leadership role." The ultimatum hung in the air, ugly and clear. They wanted her to choose Ryan or her father's legacy. Celeste opened the folder, read the proposal, and felt rage build cold and controlled in her chest. "No," she said simply. "Excuse me? No, I'm not choosing. Ryan Walker is the best maintenance employee we have. His suggestions have saved us thousands annually. His work ethic is exemplary. Firing him because I'm dating him would be wrongful termination. And threatening my position over a relationship?" She smiled without warmth. "That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. You're being emotional. I'm being honest. My father built this company on the principle that good work deserves respect, regardless of where someone comes from. Ryan embodies that principle. If you can't accept that I'm dating him, then maybe you're not the right board for this company." She stood, commanding the room. "I'm giving you a choice. Accept it and we move forward. Or I walk, and you explain to shareholders why you lost the CEO who tripled your profits in 5 years." Richard looked at the other board members, then back at her. "You'd really risk everything for him?" "Everything I've built means nothing if I can't choose who I love," Celeste said quietly. "My father understood that. I wish you did too." The vote was close, 5-3 in her favor. 2 board members resigned in protest. Ryan would transfer to the Riverside property, eliminating the direct reporting relationship. Different hotel, same pay, better hours, day shift, so he'd have evenings with Hannah. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Celeste called Ryan immediately after the meeting, hands shaking with leftover adrenaline. "I almost lost my job today," she said when he answered. "Because of us. Jesus, Celeste, but I didn't. I fought for us, for you, for the right to choose this." She took a breath. "The board wants you to transfer. Riverside property. 20 minutes from your apartment. Better hours, better facilities. Day shift, so you'd have evenings with Hannah. You stood up to your board." Ryan's voice was rough with emotion. "For me, for us," she corrected. "Because I'm done pretending this isn't everything. Done letting other people decide what I deserve." "I love you," Ryan said, and the words landed like a benediction. "I never stopped, and I'm tired of pretending I can protect myself from how much I love you." Celeste closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. "I love you too. Have loved you since I was 15. Will love you until I can't anymore. So what now? Now you take the transfer. Now we figure out how to make this work. Now we—" She smiled through tears. "Now we have our second chance." 3 months later, Celeste stood on the beach at sunset, salt in her hair and sand on her feet, Ryan's arms around her waist, and Hannah building sandcastles nearby. The same beach where they'd promised forever at 15. The same beach where her father had scattered her mother's ashes. The same beach that represented everything she'd lost and everything she'd found again. "I have something for you," Ryan said, pulling back slightly. He reached into his pocket and produced the leather keychain, the motorcycle charm catching the dying light. "Your dad told me to take care of this, to give it back when the time was right." "Ryan, the time is right, Celeste. More than right." He pressed it into her hand, folding her fingers around it. This was his reminder that some things are worth fighting for. I think he'd want you to have it back, to remember that you fought for us, that we fought for each other. Celeste looked at the keychain, then at Ryan, then at Hannah playing in the surf. She felt something settle in her chest, peace maybe, or wholeness. She'd spent 10 years building an empire, proving herself, chasing success, and it had all mattered. But this mattered more. "Hello, my friend, how was your day today?" she said softly, using the words that had become their evening ritual. "Is everything okay?" Ryan smiled, pulling her close. "Everything's perfect. I've got my girls. I've got work that matters. I've got a future that looks nothing like I planned and everything like I hoped." "Yeah," Celeste agreed, resting her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Me too." They stood there as the sun set, three people who'd found each other against all odds, holding on to what mattered while letting go of what didn't. The road ahead would have challenges. There always would be. But they'd face them together, with dignity and love and the understanding that some bridges are worth rebuilding, no matter how long it takes. Hannah ran up, breathless and sandy, holding something in her cupped hands. "Look, a butterfly. It landed right on my castle." They bent to look at the monarch perched on the sand, wings opening and closing slowly, gathering strength for its impossible journey south. "That's magic," Celeste whispered, echoing Hannah's earlier words. "The best kind," Ryan agreed, his arm tightening around Celeste's shoulders. And standing there between the man she loved and the child who'd taught her what family really meant, Celeste Davenport understood that sometimes you had to lose everything to find what actually mattered. Sometimes the keys to happiness were hidden in the past, waiting for you to be brave enough to pick them up again. Sometimes love was worth the risk, always. Did any of you have an important object? Comment here.